At 3 a.m., my phone vibrated on the nightstand. It was a text message from my daughter Sarah. "Mom, I know you paid $280,000 for this house, but my mother-in-law doesn't want you at Christmas dinner. I hope you understand." I read those words 3 times. Each one hurt more than the last. I didn't reply immediately. I stared at the illuminated screen in the darkness, feeling something inside me break for the final time. At that hour of the morning, everything feels heavier, the silence hurts more, and the truths we've been carrying for years become unbearable. I had paid $280,000 so my daughter and her husband could have a decent home, a house with a yard, with space for the children they would have someday, with large windows to let in the morning sun, a house where I was apparently no longer welcome. I got up slowly, without turning on the light. I walked to the window and looked out at the empty street. The neighbors' Christmas lights blinked faintly in the distance. I thought about all the times I had kept quiet, all the times I had smiled when something hurt me, all the times I had said it's okay when nothing was okay. My name is Evelyn Harper. I am 58 years old, and in the early hours of December 15th, something changed in me forever. I picked up my phone and typed a single word: understood. But what no one knew, not my daughter, not her husband, and certainly not that mother-in-law who had erased me from the Christmas table, was that the house was still in my name. I had paid every cent. I had signed the deed. And that morning, tired of being invisible, of being used, of being the one who always yields, I made a decision that would change everyone's Christmas. I wasn't going to that dinner, that was certain, but neither were they. No one was prepared for what was coming. Because sometimes, when a woman gets tired, she doesn't scream. She simply acts, and the consequences are inevitable. Sometimes we trust the wrong people too much. Have you ever been disappointed by someone you loved? Tell me your story in the comments. I want to read it. 4 years ago, when Sarah introduced me to Michael, I was happy. My daughter had found an educated, hard-working man with good manners, a civil engineer who spoke of projects and the future with that security that reassures a mother. I remember the afternoon they came to my house to tell me they were getting married. Sarah was wearing a light blue dress. She had that sparkle in her eyes that only true love can give. "Mom, I want you to meet Michael's family next Sunday," she told me, squeezing my hand. I prepared a pot roast, mashed potatoes, and the homemade apple pie my own mother had taught me to make. I set the table with the embroidered tablecloth I kept for special occasions. They arrived on time: Michael, his father, Arthur, and her Constance. A tall woman, hair perfectly coiffed, with that type of elegance that intimidates. She wore a pearl necklace and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "A pleasure, Evelyn," she said, shaking my hand coldly. What a cozy house. That word stuck with me. She didn't say nice, she didn't say warm, she said cozy, like someone saying small without saying it. During the meal, Constance barely touched the roast. "Oh, I have a delicate stomach," she said, touching her chest. "I can't handle heavy foods." Michael ate with an appetite. Arthur complimented my pie, but she looked at everything as if she were evaluating it. The house, the furniture, me. When they left, Sarah hugged me at the door. "Aren't they wonderful, Mom?" I smiled and nodded, but something inside me had already noticed that look, that way of making me feel less than. Still, I kept quiet because a mother does whatever it takes for her daughter's happiness, even swallowing the first warning signs. The wedding was beautiful. I paid for Sarah's dress, a gorgeous design she had seen in a boutique downtown, $2,000 that I took from my savings without thinking twice. Constance organized the reception in an elegant ballroom. Everything was impeccable: white flowers, golden lights, a dessert table out of a magazine. But when the time came for the speeches, Michael only mentioned his parents. "Thank you, Mom, Dad, for giving us this unforgettable party." Sarah sought my eyes from the head table. I smiled at her and raised my glass. "It's okay, sweetheart," I mouthed silently. But it wasn't okay. And I was starting to understand that. Months later, when Sarah and Michael celebrated their first anniversary, they invited me to lunch at their rented apartment. It was small, but they had decorated it with care. "Mom, we have to tell you something," Sarah said, taking Michael's hand. "We want to buy a house," he continued, "but we don't have enough for the full down payment." Sarah looked at me with those eyes I had known since she was a child. Mom, do you think you could help us? I had worked for 32 years as a bookkeeper at an import company. I had saved every dollar with discipline. I had lived alone since my husband died 10 years ago. That money was for my retirement, for my peace of mind, so I wouldn't have to depend on anyone. But when Sarah asked, "How much do you need?" was the only thing I said. As I tell all this, I wonder where you are listening from. Write the name of your city in the comments. Arshabawan Mayuan. That was the amount I took from my savings. It wasn't everything I had, but it was the majority. The result of 32 years of waking up at 6 a.m., taking 2 buses to get to the office, working overtime when needed. The money that was going to give me peace when I could no longer work, the money that meant freedom. But when I saw Sarah's face when I said yes, it was all worth it. Or so I thought. The house was in a quiet residential area in the suburbs. It had 3 bedrooms, 2 full bathrooms, a yard with an oak tree, and a spacious kitchen with windows looking out to the backyard. It was perfect. The day we went to see it, Sarah walked through the empty rooms with her hands on her chest, smiling like a little girl. "Our room will go here, Mom. And this bedroom here." She stopped in the smaller room next to the window. "This one is going to be for you." I stood still. "For me?" "Of course, Mom," Sarah said, hugging me. "You're helping us with the house. It's only fair that you have your own space when you come to visit or when you want to stay over." Michael nodded from the hallway. "Of course, Mrs. Harper. This house is yours too." I felt my heart fill up. Maybe everything was going to be fine. Maybe this investment wasn't just money, but a place where I belonged too. We signed the papers at the title company in late March. I put my name as the primary owner. Sarah and Michael were listed as beneficiaries, but legally, the house was in my name. My lawyer, Mr. Robinson, an older man who had been doing my taxes for years, had advised me to do so. "Evelyn, if you're going to put up that amount of money, protect yourself," he told me. "Keep the property in your name for at least 2 years. Then you can transfer it if you want. But for now, protect yourself." I did it. Although deep down I felt guilty for even thinking it. What kind of mother distrusts her own daughter? When I told Sarah that the house would remain in my name temporarily, she didn't object. "That sounds perfect, Mom. After all, it's your money. When we can pay you back, we'll do the transfer." But that night, Michael called his mother. I was in Sarah's kitchen making coffee when I heard his voice in the living room. "Yes, Mom. Yes, Mrs. Harper is putting up the money, but the house stays in her name." Silence. "No, Mom. It's not mistrust. It's just that her lawyer recommended it." Another silence. "Yes, I know, but we can't say anything. Without her money, there's no house." I felt a chill. I went back to the living room with the coffee tray as if I hadn't heard anything, but something had already changed. During the following months, I helped Sarah and Michael furnish the house. I bought the refrigerator, the washer, paid for half of the living room set. I also gifted them a solid wood dining table I found in an antique shop. It was beautiful, seating 8 people. "So we can have family dinners, sweetheart," I told Sarah while the movers brought it in. She hugged me tight. "You're the best mom in the world." The first time I went to stay in my room, I arrived on a Friday afternoon with a small suitcase and a red velvet cake I had baked that morning. I rang the doorbell. Sarah opened the door, but she had a strange expression. "Mom, you didn't tell me you were coming?" "Yes, honey. I texted you yesterday." "Oh, I didn't see it. It's just that." She looked inside. Michael had invited his parents to dinner, and there she was. Constance, sitting in the living room I had helped furnish, drinking tea from a porcelain cup. She looked me up and down. "Mrs. Harper, what a surprise." She didn't get up to greet me. "Good afternoon, Constance," I said, entering with my suitcase. "Mom, you're staying in your room, right?" Sarah said nervously. "It's just that Constance is already settled in the guest room." I froze. The guest room, the room Sarah had told me was for me. "Of course, sweetheart, no problem," I said with that smile that was already starting to hurt. I went up to my room, but when I opened the door, I realized it wasn't empty like the last time. There were boxes stacked against the wall, Michael's old clothes hanging in the closet, a stationary bike in the corner. My room had turned into a storage unit. I sat on the edge of the bed and took a deep breath. Don't cry, Evelyn, don't cry. I went down half an hour later with the cake in my hands. I brought red velvet, I said, trying to sound cheerful. Constance wrinkled her nose. Oh, what a shame, Evelyn. I brought a French silk pie from a boutique bakery. We already put it in the fridge. Michael avoided my gaze. Sarah took the cake from my hands. Thanks, Mom. We'll save it for tomorrow. But I knew they weren't going to eat it. During dinner, Constance spoke nonstop about her country club, her trips, how expensive everything was. Arthur nodded at every comment his wife made. Michael laughed at the right moments. Sarah served the food in silence. And I was sitting there at the table I had bought, in the house I had paid for, feeling invisible. At one point, Constance pointed to the living room curtains. Sarah, darling, those curtains are very plain. I know a divine shop where they sell some imported from Spain. I'll gift them to you for Christmas. Oh, thanks, Constance, that's so sweet, Sarah said. It's just that this house has so much potential, Constance continued. It just needs a few touches of good taste. Good taste. As if everything I had contributed didn't have it. I got up from the table. Excuse me, I have a bit of a headache. I'm going to lie down. No one protested. I went up to my room, lay on the quilt, and stared at the ceiling in silence. That night I didn't cry, but something inside me began to crack, something that over time could no longer be repaired. Because one can withstand many things, but feeling invisible in the place you built yourself, that hurts in a way that has no name. And the worst part is that it was just beginning. The months that followed were a succession of small wounds. Wounds so subtle that at first, I convinced myself I was exaggerating, that it was my imagination, that I was too sensitive. But the pain was real. Sarah started calling me less. Before, we talked every day, even if it was just 10 minutes before bed. Now, 3 or 4 days would pass without me hearing from her. When I called, sometimes she didn't answer. When she did answer, she was always in a hurry. Mom, I'll call you later. I'm with Constance at the grocery store. Mom, I can't right now. We're going out to eat with Michael's parents. Mom, I'll tell you later. We're going to Constance's house to look at fabrics for the cushions. Constance. Always Constance. One Saturday afternoon, I dared to ask her, Sweetheart, are we not doing our Sunday coffees anymore? There was an awkward silence on the other end of the line. Oh, Mom, it's just that on Sundays Michael and I go to brunch with his parents. You know, it's tradition in his family. I understand, I said, although I didn't understand anything. What if one Sunday I go with you? Another silence. It's just that Constance is very particular about that, Mom. You know, it's her moment with Michael. Her moment with Michael. Michael wasn't just my daughter's husband anymore. Now he was Constance's son, who happened to have married Sarah. It's okay, honey. Don't worry, I said with a voice that was starting to sound fake, even to myself. I hung up and sat in my living room looking at Sarah's graduation photo. She was 22 inches, that photo. She wore her navy blue gown and held her business administration degree with a huge smile. I was beside her, hugging her. That day she had told me, Mom, everything I am is thanks to you. At what moment had that changed? I decided I needed to make an effort. Maybe I was the one pulling away without realizing it. Maybe I needed to be more present, more flexible, more pleasant. So I started bringing them food every week. Tuesdays after work, I would prepare something special and drop it off. Chicken casserole, meatballs and marinara, vegetable soup, things I knew Sarah had liked since she was a little girl. The first few times, she received the Tupperware with joy. Oh, Mom, thanks, smells delicious. But little by little, her enthusiasm faded. One afternoon, when I arrived with a lasagna that had taken me 3 hours to prepare, Sarah opened the door with a tired face. Mom, I told you it's not necessary for you to cook so much. It's just that I like doing it, honey. Besides, I know you work a lot, and this way you don't have to worry about dinner. It's just that Constance also brings us food, she said, lowering her voice, and the fridge is already full. I stood there with the container in my hands. Do you want me to take it back? No, leave it. I'll make space. But I saw in her eyes that it was a nuisance, that my food, my effort, my love was a nuisance. I went in for a moment to leave the container in the kitchen, and there, in the refrigerator, I saw the elegant glass containers with printed labels, risotto by Constance, Mediterranean salad by Constance, Berry Tart by Constance. My lasagna, in its discolored plastic Tupperware, looked sad next to all that impeccable presentation. "The lasagna looks really good, Mom," Sarah said behind me. "Really?" But her voice didn't sound convincing. I drove back home with a lump in my throat. I didn't cry. I was already learning not to cry. In October, Sarah turned 28. I had planned everything weeks in advance. I reserved a table at a restaurant she loved, the same one where we had celebrated her last 5 birthdays. I invited her 2 best friends from college, my sister Margaret, and, of course, Michael. I sent the digital invitation a week in advance. Sarah called me that same night. "Mom, the invitation is so cute, but it's just that." The butt dropped like a stone in my stomach. "It's just that Constance already organized a surprise dinner for me at her house on the same day." "The same day?" "Yes. She didn't know you had already planned something." "Sarah, I sent you the invitation a week ago, and we've been talking about this dinner for a month." "I know, Mom, I know, but everything is already ready." She invited Michael's family, hired a catering service, ordered a cake. I can't tell her no. "And you can tell me no?" The words came out before I could stop them. There was a long silence. "Mom, don't be like that." "Like what?" "Sarah, you can cancel the restaurant. Constance already paid for everything." I felt something break in my chest. "You know what, sweetheart? You're right. Go to your mother-in-law's dinner. I'll cancel the restaurant." "Mom, don't be mad." "I'm not mad, Sarah. I understand perfectly." I hung up before she could respond. I canceled the restaurant reservation. I lost the $200 deposit. I sent a text to my sister Margaret and Sarah's friends. "Dinner is canceled. Last-minute change of plans." That night I sat in my dining room alone and took out the gift I had bought for Sarah. It was a silver bracelet with a heart-shaped charm. Inside the heart, engraved in small letters, it said, "Mother and daughter always." I put it back in its velvet box and stored it in my nightstand drawer, where I kept all the things that I didn't know if they made sense anymore. On Sarah's birthday, she sent me a photo of the dinner at Constance's house. A long table decorated with gold and white balloons, a 3-tier cake with sugar flowers, Michael hugging Sarah, Constance posing next to them with a triumphant smile. The message said, "Missed you, Mom," but it was beautiful. "Thanks for understanding." I replied, "Happy birthday, my love. God bless you always." I didn't mention the canceled dinner. I didn't mention the lost deposit. I didn't mention the stored gift. Because that's what mothers do, right? We swallow the pain, smile, and say everything is fine, even if something is dying inside. November arrived with an unusual chill. Sarah called me on a Wednesday night. "Mom, do you have plans for Christmas?" My heart skipped a beat. Christmas. Our tradition. Since Sarah was a little girl, we spent Christmas Eve together. We baked cookies, roasted the turkey, played carols. It was our moment. "Well, I thought we would spend it together like always," I said, trying to sound casual. "It's just that this year is going to be different, Mom." Different. That word again. Constance wants to host Christmas dinner at our house. She says she's getting older and climbing the stairs at her house is hard for her, so we thought it would be nice to do it at the new house. "Our house. The house I paid for." "I understand," I said. "And you're coming, of course. You're part of the family." I breathed a sigh of relief. "Okay, honey. I'll bring the stuffing and the eggnog like always." Mom. It's just that Constance already has the whole menu planned. She's gonna bring everything. But I always make the stuffing for Christmas, Sarah. "I know, Mom, but you know how she is. She likes everything to be a certain way." A certain way. Her way. What if I just bring the eggnog? "Mom, really, don't worry. Just come and enjoy. You don't have to bring anything." I didn't have to bring anything, except that I was no longer welcome, except that my place at that table was already being occupied by someone else. But I didn't know that yet. I still believed that if I made myself smaller, more invisible, more obedient, I would still fit in my daughter's life. How wrong I was. I still ask myself if I did the right thing by staying silent for so long. What would you have done in my place? December arrived with that air of hope that Christmas brings. The streets filled with lights, stores played carols, and I tried to convince myself that everything was going to be okay, that the Christmas dinner at Sarah's house would be a fresh start. that Constance and I could get along better if I made the effort, that maybe, just maybe, this Christmas would unite us as a family. How naive I was. On December 10th, I went to the mall to buy Sarah's Christmas gift. I walked through the bright corridors, watching young couples carrying bags, children pointing at toys, families taking photos by the giant tree at the entrance. I felt terribly alone, but I kept walking. I entered an elegant jewelry store. There I found a set of silver earrings and a necklace with blue stones. Sarah had always loved blue. "It's for my daughter," I told the saleswoman. "What a beautiful gift," she replied, smiling. "She's sure to love it." I paid $230 money that was harder for me to gather now because my savings were dwindling. But I didn't care. I still believed my love could be bought with details. That same afternoon, while I was having a coffee in the food court, my phone rang. It was my sister Margaret. "Evelyn, are you busy?" "No. I'm at the mall." "Is something wrong?" "I need to tell you something. And I don't know if I should, but I think you have a right to know." My heart sped up. "What is it, Maggie?" "Last night I went to the grocery store and saw Sarah with Constance. They were in the Christmas decoration aisle. I was going to say hello, but I heard what they were talking about." Margaret paused. "What did you hear?" "Constance was telling Sarah that your presence at Christmas dinner made her feel uncomfortable." I felt the floor move beneath my feet. "What?" "Yes, Evelyn," Sarah said. "I know Constance, but I can't tell her not to come. She's my mom." But Constance insisted. She said, "My dear, I understand she's your mother, but the truth is I don't feel comfortable with her at family gatherings. She's a woman." How do I put this? Very simple. She doesn't fit with our atmosphere. I closed my eyes. Simple. That word pierced me like a knife. "And what did Sarah say?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. Margaret sighed. "Sarah didn't defend you, Evelyn." She stayed quiet and then said, "I know, Constance, but I can't tell her not to come." As if I were an obligation, as if my presence were a burden. "Are you there, Evelyn?" "Yes, I'm here. I'm so sorry, sister, but I thought you should know. Thanks, Maggie." I hung up. I sat at that food court table, surrounded by Christmas laughter, with the coffee cooling in front of me. And for the first time in months, I felt something other than pain. I felt rage. That night I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned in bed, replaying every conversation, every gesture, every word I had ignored, the "I'll call you laters" that never came, the "you don't need to" comes wrapped in fake smiles. The Constance already organized its that erased me from every plan. My daughter was pushing me away, and I had been too cowardly to see it. At 2 a.m., I got up and turned on my computer. I opened my email and looked for the house documents, the deed, the contract, the transfer receipts for the $280,000. Everything was in my name. I was the absolute legal owner of that house. Sarah and Michael were just residents. Residents who, according to the contract, had the obligation to make me a participant in the family use of the property. My lawyer had included that clause. I hadn't even given it importance at the time. But now, it made perfect sense. I printed the documents and put them in a folder. I didn't know what for. I just knew I needed to have them close. The following days were strange. Sarah called me a couple of times, as always with that rushed voice, but I didn't listen the same way anymore. Now I noticed every awkward pause, every subject change. When I mentioned Christmas dinner, every "I have to go" arrived too quickly. On December 14th, I decided to stop by the house without warning. I needed to see my daughter. I needed to look her in the eyes and ask her if what Margaret had heard was true. I rang the doorbell at 11 a.m. Michael opened the door in sweatpants, looking surprised. "Mrs. Harper, good morning. We didn't know you were coming." "I came to see Sarah. Is she here?" "Yes, she's upstairs. Come in." I entered the house. My house. The living room was different. They had put up new curtains, an elegant beige color, the ones Constance had promised to gift. The armchair I had helped buy was covered with embroidered cushions I had never seen. On the mantelpiece, there was a large picture frame. I walked closer. It was a family photo. Michael, Sarah, Arthur, Constance, all smiling in front of the Christmas tree at Constance's house. I looked for my photo, the photo of the two of us at her graduation, the photo that used to be on that same mantel. It was gone. "Mom?" I turned around. Sarah was coming down the stairs in pajamas, hair messy. Is something wrong? I came to see you, sweetheart. Can't I come to see you? Of course. It's just that you should have let me know. What for, Sarah? So you can tell me you're busy? She fell silent. We sat in the living room, uncomfortable, like two strangers. Mom, are you okay? You seem weird. Weird? Yes. Like angry. I took a deep breath. Sarah, I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer me truthfully. She tensed up. What is it? Did Constance tell you she doesn't want me at Christmas dinner? The color drained from her face. Who told you that? Sarah, just answer. Is it true? She bit her lip. She looked toward the stairs where Michael had discreetly disappeared. Mom, it's complicated. No, Sarah, it's not complicated. It's a simple question. Yes or no. She has her ideas. Mom, you know how she is. She thinks family gatherings should be a certain way. A certain way. What does that mean? Mom, please don't do this. Do what, Sarah? Ask if I still have a place in your life? Of course you have a place. Then why are you excluding me from your Christmas? I'm not excluding you. Then what is happening? Sarah stood up from the armchair, frustrated. Mom, you don't understand. Constance is important to Michael, and I can't be at odds with her. She's very sensitive. If I do something she doesn't like, she gets mad and stops talking to us for weeks. And Michael suffers, and I suffer, seeing Michael suffer. And I don't matter? You're my daughter. You're my mom. You're always going to be there. Always going to be there? Even when you erase me from your photos? Even when you reject my food? Even when you cancel our traditions? Don't be dramatic. Those words hit me like a slap. Dramatic. Yes, Mom. You're making a problem out of nothing. Sarah, that woman doesn't want me at Christmas dinner in the house I paid for. Oh, Mom, it's always the same. You always mention the money. Because it's the truth. Well, if it bothers you so much, take your damn money back. The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah covered her mouth, regretting it. Mom, sorry. I didn't. I stood up slowly. I took my purse. No, Sarah. You're right. Mom, ignore me. I'm stressed. Take care, sweetheart. I understood everything. I walked toward the door. Mom, wait. I didn't stop. I left that house, got in my car, and drove to my apartment with my hands shaking on the steering wheel. When I arrived, I sat in my dining room and took out my phone. I searched for my lawyer's contact and wrote, Mr. Robinson, I need urgent advice regarding the property in my name. Can you see me tomorrow? The answer came in 5 minutes. Of course, Evelyn. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. at my office. Is everything okay? I didn't answer because, no, nothing was okay. And I had just realized that I had been swallowing pain that no longer fit in my chest for months. But something had changed. That pain was turning into clarity. And clarity is sometimes the most dangerous thing a woman who has been underestimated for too long can possess. The next morning, I woke up at 6. I hadn't slept at all. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Sarah's voice. Well, if it bothers you so much, take your damn money back. Those words had pierced my soul. Not because of the anger, but because of the truth they contained. For my daughter, my sacrifice had become a reproach, my love a burden, and I had become a nuisance. I made coffee that I couldn't finish. I showered on autopilot. I dressed in a gray suit I hadn't worn in months. I needed to feel strong. I needed to feel dignified, even if inside I was falling apart. At 9:30, I was at Mr. Robinson's office. He received me with the same kindness as always. He was a 60-year-old man, gray-haired, with thick glasses, and that seriousness that inspires confidence. Evelyn, come in. Sit down. Can I offer you a coffee? No thanks, Mr. Robinson. I already had one at home. Very well. Tell me, what brings you here? Your message yesterday sounded urgent. I took out the folder with the house documents and placed them on his desk. Mr. Robinson, I need you to explain to me exactly what my rights are regarding this property. He opened the folder and began to review the papers carefully. Several minutes passed in silence. Only the sound of turning pages could be heard. Finally, he took off his glasses and looked at me. Evelyn, you are the absolute legal owner of this property. Your name appears as the sole title holder on the deed. Sarah and Michael have no property rights. They are only listed as authorized residents. What does that mean exactly? It means you can do whatever you deem appropriate with this house. You can sell it, rent it, or ask them to vacate. It's that simple. It's that simple. You put up the money. You signed. The house is yours. I felt a chill. And them? They can't do anything? Not unless you signed a private agreement promising them the property, which I don't see here. Is there anything like that? No, only verbal agreements. I told them I would transfer it to them someday when they could pay me back. Are there witnesses to that? Only the three of us. Then there is nothing legally binding. Evelyn, that house is yours to do what you want with. I stayed silent, processing his words. Mr. Robinson, can I sell it without their consent? Yes. Can I ask them to leave? You just need to give them formal notice. Since they are there without paying rent and without a contract, you can file for eviction with 30 days' notice. 30 days. And if I wanted to sell the house immediately? He looked at me intently. Is the situation that grave, Evelyn? I didn't answer with words, but my eyes said it all. He sighed. Look, legally you can, but I understand this is your daughter. I would recommend you think it through. These decisions have emotional consequences that go beyond the legal ones. There are no emotions left to care for, Mr. Robinson. They made that very clear to me. Do you want to prepare the sales documents? I stayed silent. Was I really going to do this? Was I really going to sell my daughter's house? I thought of Sarah, of her happy face the day she saw that house for the first time, of her decoration plans, of her dreams of starting a family there. But then I thought of the family photo I had been excluded from, the room that had become a storage unit, the rejected lasagna, the canceled birthday dinner, the take your damn money back, and above all, I thought of Christmas, of the dinner where I wasn't welcome, in the house I paid for, at the table I bought, where Constance would be the queen and I wouldn't even have a seat. Yes, Mr. Robinson, I said finally. Prepare the documents. Are you sure? I have never been more sure of anything in my life. He nodded slowly. Very well. Do you want to list it with an agency, or do you know an interested buyer? I want to sell it as quickly as possible. How long would it take if we look for a cash buyer? Maybe 3 or 4 weeks. There are investors looking for properties like this constantly. 3 or 4 weeks. That would take us to the end of December. Mr. Robinson, what date is it today? December 15th. I did the math in my head. Would it be possible to have the sale closed by December 24th? He looked at me in surprise. That's very little time, Evelyn. But if we find the right buyer and you are willing to lower the price a bit to expedite, maybe yes. How much would I have to lower? Instead of asking for $300,000, you could offer it at $270,000. It's $30,000 less, but the sale would be immediate. $30,000 less. Still, I would recover almost all my money. And more importantly, I would recover my dignity. Do it, Mr. Robinson. Sell it for $270,000. But I need the operation closed on December 24th, not a day later. December 24th. Evelyn, that's Christmas Eve. I know perfectly well. We looked at each other in silence. He understood. Okay, I'll do my best. I know some investors who might be interested. I'll let them know it's a cash opportunity, negotiable price, urgent transaction. Perfect. And the eviction notice. Prepare that too. But don't deliver it yet. I'll let you know when. When do you plan to deliver it? I smiled for the first time in days. A sad smile, but a smile. The afternoon of December 24th, Mr. Robinson let out a long sigh. Evelyn, are you absolutely sure about this? There is no turning back. I've spent months making myself small to fit into my daughter's life, and you know what I discovered? That no matter how small I make myself, I will never be enough for them. So I decided something better. What? I decided to regain my size. I left that office with the folder under my arm and a strange weight in my chest. It wasn't relief, nor was it sadness. It was clarity. That cold, sharp clarity that comes when you finally understand that they don't love you the way you love, that they don't value you the way you value, and that sacrifice, when unrequited, becomes humiliation. The following days were weird. Sarah didn't call me after our fight. I didn't call her either. It was as if we were both waiting for the other to take the first step, but neither did. Mr. Robinson called me on December 18th. Evelyn, I have good news. I found a buyer. My heart leaped. So fast? Yes. It's an investor who has a fund to buy properties in that area. Midwest Real Estate Holdings. They were very interested because the house is in excellent condition. They offer $265,000 cash, $5,000 less than we asked. But the deal can close on December 23rd. I had invested $280,000. I would lose $15,000, but I would regain my peace. I accept. Are you sure? We could look for someone to pay the $270,000. No, Mr. Robinson, I accept. I want to close this immediately. Very well, I'll prepare everything. The signing would be December 23rd at 10 a.m. Does that work for you? Perfect. And I want the eviction notice ready to be delivered on the 24th in the afternoon, around 6 p.m. Understood? I'll have it ready. I hung up. I sat in my dining room and for the first time in weeks, I cried. But not from sadness. I cried from liberation, because I was going to do something I had never done in my life. I was going to choose myself. That night, Sarah finally sent me a text. Mom, sorry about the other day. I was stressed. You're coming to Christmas dinner, right? We expect you at 7 p.m. on the 24th. I read the message 3 times. We expect you. Not I want you there. Not, it's not the same without you. Just. We expect you, like someone expecting the plumber, the cable guy, the person providing a service. I replied, of course, sweetheart, I'll be there. But I wasn't going to be there. Not in the way she expected. On December 20th, I went to the bank and requested a cashier's check prepared for the sale amount. The clerk looked at me with curiosity. That's a lot of money, ma'am. Are you sure you want it in a cashier's check? Completely sure. On December 21st, Margaret called me. Evelyn, are you going to Sarah's Christmas dinner? Yes, I'm going. Really? I thought after everything that happened. Maggie, I'm going to ask you something. Don't ask questions. Just trust me. You're scaring me. Don't be scared. Things are just going to happen, and I need you to know I'm okay, that I'm doing the right thing. What things are going to happen? You'll see. I love you, sister. I love you too, Evelyn. But you worry me. Don't worry. For the first time in a long time, I know exactly what I'm doing. On December 22nd, I packed the things I had in my room at Sarah's house. It wasn't much. Some changes of clothes I had left there. A couple of books. A photo of my husband I had put on the nightstand. I put everything in a small bag, and when I left that room, I knew I would never enter again. On December 23rd, I arrived at Mr. Robinson's office at 9:30 a.m. The buyer was already there. He was a young man, about 35. Impeccable suit, leather briefcase. Mrs. Harper, a pleasure. I'm Robert Miller, representing Midwest Real Estate Holdings. We shook hands. The pleasure is mine. It's a beautiful property. We reviewed it last week. It's in excellent condition. Thank you. Mr. Robinson put the documents on the table. Very well, we have here the sales deed, Mrs. Evelyn Harper. You cede all rights to the property located at 347 Oakwood Drive to Midwest Real Estate Holdings for the amount of $265,000. Do you agree? I agree. Mr. Miller, does your firm accept the terms? Yes, we accept. Perfect. Please sign. I signed every page. My hand didn't tremble once. When I finished, Mr. Miller handed me the cashier's check. Here you go, Mrs. Harper. $265,000. I took the check. It was a simple piece of paper, but it represented my freedom. And when do you take possession of the house? I asked. Legally, from this moment. But I understand the current occupants need time to vacate. When do you think they can leave the property? I looked at Mr. Robinson. Mr. Robinson, the eviction notice gives them 30 days. That's right. Then they have until January 24th. Mr. Miller nodded. Perfect. That gives us time to plan the renovations. We're going to convert it into an executive rental home. An executive rental. It wasn't even going to be Sarah's anymore in any sense. It was going to belong to strangers, and for some reason, that seemed perfect to me. I left that office with the check in my purse and the eviction notice in a manila envelope. I went directly to the bank and deposited the check. $265,000. It wasn't everything I had invested, but it was enough. That afternoon, I sat in my living room and wrote a letter. Not for Sarah, for me. Dear Evelyn, today you sold the house you bought for your daughter. Today you recovered the money you gave with love. Today you chose your dignity over their comfort. And it's okay. You aren't a bad mother. You are a woman who finally understood that love isn't begged for, that sacrifice without reciprocity is called abuse, and that sometimes the most loving decision you can take is to walk away. Tomorrow will be a difficult day, but it will be the first day of the rest of your life, and that life finally belongs only to you. I folded the letter and put it in my nightstand drawer next to the birthday gift I never gave Sarah, next to the bracelet that said mother and daughter always, because always had turned out to be a promise only I was keeping. I went to bed early that night. Tomorrow would be Christmas Eve, the day everything would change, the day I would stop being invisible, and although I knew it would hurt, I also knew it would heal, because there are pains that cure, and this was one of them. I woke up on December 24th at 5 a.m. I had slept barely 3 hours, but it wasn't the insomnia of anguish. It was the vigilance of someone about to cross a bridge of no return. In other Christmases, at this hour, I would already be in the kitchen, preparing the pie dough, chopping celery for the stuffing, putting the cider to boil with cinnamon. Those aromas that filled the whole house and meant home, family, love. But this year, everything was different. I got up slowly and went to the kitchen. I made coffee, sat by the window, and watched the city wake up. The first lights of dawn painted the sky pale orange. It was a beautiful day. Ironic, I thought. The most painful day of my life, and the sky was clear. At 8 a.m. my phone rang. It was Sarah. I hesitated to answer. Finally, I slid my finger across the screen. Hello, Mom. Good morning. How did you sleep? Her voice sounded animated. Fakely animated. Fine, honey. And you? Oh, Mom, running around like crazy here. Constance arrived early with everything for dinner. She brought turkey, ham, salads, desserts. She even hired a lady to serve. Everything is going to be beautiful. A lady to serve. In the house I paid for, with the money I earned, while I was treated like a third-class guest. That's nice, honey. What time are you arriving, Mom? Dinner is at 7, but you can come earlier if you want to help set the table. Help set the table. They didn't even let me organize anything, just help. I'll arrive at 6:30, Sarah. Perfect, Mom. See you then. Love you. I love you too, sweetheart. I hung up and stared at the phone in my hand. Love you. When had that phrase become a white lie? When did it stop meaning I value you, I respect you, I include you? When did it become just an empty word said out of habit? At 10 a.m. I went to Mr. Robinson's office. He was waiting for me. Evelyn, good morning. Ready? Ready. He handed me a manila envelope. Inside was the eviction notice printed on official paper with my signature, with the lawyer's signature, with the corresponding stamps. By means of this letter, the occupants of the property located at 347 Oakwood Drive are notified that they must vacate the property within a maximum period of 30 calendar days from the date of receipt of this document. Due to the property being sold to a third party, the legal owner, Mrs. Evelyn Harper, exercising her full right, has decided to cede the ownership of said property. I read the complete document. Every word weighed on me, but also liberated me. Are you sure you want to deliver it today? The lawyer asked one more time. Completely sure. Evelyn. They are going to react badly. You know that, right? I know. They're going to say things. They're going to be furious. They're going to... I know, Mr. Robinson. I know exactly what's going to happen. And you still want to do it? Especially because of that. He sighed. You are a very brave woman, Evelyn. I'm not brave, Mr. Robinson. I'm just tired. I put the envelope in my purse. I left there and went to church. I'm not a very religious woman, but in the most important moments of my life, I've always gone to church. I entered the empty sanctuary. The candlelight flickered softly. There was a huge nativity scene next to the altar. Mary, Joseph, baby Jesus, the shepherds. A family. I sat in a back pew and closed my eyes. I didn't pray. I just breathed. And in that silence, I found something resembling peace. "Forgive me, God," I whispered. "If this is wrong, forgive me. But I can't go on like this." I didn't wait for an answer because I knew the only answer that mattered was in my heart. And my heart had already decided. At 5 p.m. I returned to my apartment. I showered calmly, put on a navy blue dress I had always liked. I applied light makeup, combed my hair carefully, put on the silver earrings my husband had given me on our last anniversary before he died. I looked in the mirror, and for the first time in months, I recognized myself. There I was, Evelyn Harper, 58 years old, bookkeeper, widow, mother, but above all, a woman. With dignity, with value, with the right to be respected. I took my purse. Inside was the manila envelope with the eviction notice. I left my apartment at 6 p.m. The drive to Sarah's house took 20 minutes. 20 minutes in which I reviewed my whole life. The years of sacrifice, the sleepless nights, the extra jobs, the savings stored dollar by dollar. Everything I had done for her. And now I was about to take it away. Not for revenge, but for survival. I arrived at Oakwood Drive at 6:25. The street was lit with Christmas lights. The houses shone with decorations. Carols could be heard in the distance. Happy families celebrating. I parked my car in front of the house that was no longer mine, the house that would no longer be Sarah's either. I took 3 deep breaths and got out of the car with my purse in hand. I rang the doorbell. Michael opened the door. He was wearing a red sweater with an embroidered reindeer, wide smile, wine glass in hand. "Mrs. Harper, Merry Christmas. Come in, come in." I entered. The house smelled of roast turkey and cinnamon. There was a huge Christmas tree in the living room, decorated with golden ornaments and white lights. The dining table was set with a white linen tablecloth, porcelain dishes, crystal glasses. There were 6 chairs, not 7. 6. I counted mentally. Sarah, Michael, Arthur, Constance. And the other 2. "Mom, you're here," Sarah said, coming out of the kitchen. She was wearing an emerald green dress. She looked beautiful, happy. "Merry Christmas, sweetheart," I said, hugging her. She returned the hug, but it was a short, uncomfortable hug. "Come, I want to introduce you to someone," she said, taking my hand. She led me to the living room. There was Constance, sitting in the main armchair as if she were the owner of the house. She wore a burgundy dress, pearl necklace, perfect hair. Next to her was a young couple I didn't know. "Mom, these are Sebastian and Lucy, Michael's cousins. They came from Chicago." "Ah." The other 2 chairs. "Nice to meet you," I said, shaking their hands. "The pleasure is ours, ma'am," Sebastian replied. Constance looked me up and down. "Evelyn, how punctual. Sit down, sit down. Do you want something to drink?" She didn't get up to greet me. She didn't even offer her hand. "No thanks. I'm fine." I sat in a single chair, far from the group. Arthur arrived from the patio with another glass of wine. "Ah, Evelyn. Good evening. Merry Christmas." "Merry Christmas, Arthur." And there I was, sitting in the living room of the house I bought, surrounded by my son-in-law's family, while my daughter ran from one side to the other, serving appetizers Constance had brought, invisible, uncomfortable, out of place. 30 minutes of superficial conversation passed. Sebastian and Lucy talked about their trip. Arthur commented on the weather. Constance narrated anecdotes of her vacations in Europe. Michael laughed at the right moments. Sarah nodded at everything her mother-in-law said. And I was there, but I wasn't there. At 7 sharp, Sarah announced, "Dinner is ready. Come to the dining room." Everyone got up. I did too. We walked toward the table. Constance sat at the head like the matriarch, like the queen. Michael to her right, Sarah to her left, Arthur next to Michael, Sebastian and Lucy on the other side. And I ended up at the other head of the table, alone, at the opposite end, miles away from my daughter. I sat down slowly, and at that moment something inside me finished breaking. Michael brought the turkey. Sarah brought the sides. Constance raised her glass. "Family, before starting, I want to make a toast." Everyone raised their glasses. I raised mine too. although my hand was trembling. I want to thank God for this beautiful family we have formed. For my son Michael, who fills me with pride every day. For Sarah, who is like the daughter I always dreamed of having. For this wonderful house where we are gathered today. And for this perfect moment, cheers. Cheers! They all shouted. They clinked their glasses, smiled, toasted. And I left my glass on the table without drinking. Because I had just heard the only thing I needed to hear. For this wonderful house, the house she hadn't paid for, the house where I wasn't welcome, the house that in 30 minutes would no longer be theirs. I looked at Sarah. She was laughing at something Sebastian had said. Happy, carefree, oblivious to everything, oblivious to me. I got up from the table. Excuse me, I said. No one turned to look at me. No one asked if I was okay. I walked to the kitchen, took out my phone, and sent a text to Mr. Robinson. Proceed, he replied immediately. Understood. In 15 minutes. I put my phone away, returned to the dining room. I sat in my place and waited. They ate, laughed, told stories. Constance talked nonstop. Michael listened to her, mesmerized. Sarah served more wine, and I just waited. At 7:30, the doorbell rang. Michael got up. Are you expecting anyone else? No, said Sarah, confused. He went to open the door. I heard voices in the entrance. Seconds later, Michael returned, pale. Sarah, there's someone who wants to talk to you. Sarah got up, puzzled. Who is it? It's a process server. Silence fell over the table like a concrete slab. Sarah left the room. I remained seated, calm, breathing. Constance frowned. A process server? On Christmas Eve? How disrespectful. 2 eternal minutes passed. Then I heard Sarah's scream. What? We all got up from the table. We ran to the entrance. Sarah was at the door with an open envelope in her hands. Her face was distorted, white, trembling. Michael read the document over her shoulder. It can't be. It can't be. What's wrong? Asked Arthur. Sarah turned to look at me. Her eyes were full of tears, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of fury. You did this. Everyone looked at me. I held her gaze. Yes, Sarah, I did this. You sold the house? Yes. How could you? Because it's my house, Sarah. It always was. But we live here. Lived here. You have 30 days to vacate. Michael took a step toward me. Mrs. Harper, this is a mistake, right? You can't do this. You promised us. I didn't promise you anything, Michael. I told you that someday I might transfer the house to you, but that day never came. Constance stepped forward. Her face was red with indignation. This is an abuse, an injustice. You can't leave my son on the street. I looked her directly in the eyes. Your son isn't on the street, Constance. Your son has 30 days to look for another place, and he has a mother who boasts so much about her resources that I'm sure she can help him. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Sarah approached me, trembling. Mom, why? Why are you doing this to us? Are you really asking me that, Sarah? Yes, because you made it very clear that I had no place in your life. Because you excluded me from your table. Because you rejected my love over and over again. Because you chose this woman, I pointed at Constance, over your own mother. That's not true. No? Tell me, Sarah, where was my stuffing tonight? Where was my eggnog? Where was my place at this dinner? She fell silent. Exactly. There was no place for me, but there was a place for all of them. Because you don't accept Michael's family. No, Sarah. Because Michael's family doesn't accept me, and you allowed it. Constance intervened. You are a resentful, bitter woman. No, Constance, I am a woman who finally learned to value herself. You ruined Christmas. I smiled sadly. My Christmas was already ruined from the moment your daughter-in-law sent me a message saying you didn't want me here. Sarah went pale. How did you know that? Because I wasn't the only one listening to your conversation at the supermarket, sweetheart. Constance looked at Sarah with fury. You told her that in public? Sarah stammered. I didn't know anyone was listening. I approached my daughter. She backed away. Sarah, I gave you everything. My money, my time, my love. And you gave me crumbs. You made me feel invisible. You made me feel like I was the one in the wrong for expecting respect. Mom, I never. Yes, you did. And it's okay. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just tired. I took my purse. You have until January 24th. The new owner has already paid. The papers are signed. There is no turning back. Mom, you can't leave like this. Of course I can. I walked toward the door. Sarah followed me. Mom, please. Can we talk? Can we fix this? I stopped. I turned to look at her. You know what's saddest, Sarah? That I would have given anything to hear you say those words 2 months ago. But now, it's too late. It's never too late, Mom. For some things, it is. Merry Christmas, sweetheart. I left that house, closed the door behind me, and heard the screams that remained inside. The arguments, the crying, the chaos. I got in my car, started it, and drove away without looking back. Because if I looked back, maybe I would have regretted it. And I couldn't regret it. Not now. Not after finally finding my own voice. I drove aimlessly for an hour. The streets were empty. Everyone was home celebrating. Families gathered, tables full, hugs, laughter, and I was alone in my car with my hands shaking on the wheel, but I wasn't crying. Not yet. Because if I started crying, I feared I wouldn't be able to stop. Finally, I stopped at a lookout point on the outskirts of the city. From there, you could see the whole city illuminated. Thousands of lights blinking in the darkness. Each light was a house. Each house, a family. Each family, a story. I turned off the engine, sat in the silence, and there, in that absolute solitude, I finally breathed. Really breathed. For the first time in months, I felt my lungs fill completely. There was no one to please, no one to smile falsely at, no one making me feel small. Just me. Me and my decision. I took out my phone. I had 15 missed calls from Sarah, 8 messages from Michael, 3 messages from unknown numbers, 1 from Margaret. I opened Margaret's first. Evelyn, are you okay? Sarah called me crying. She told me everything. I don't know what to say. Just take care of yourself. Love you, sister. I replied, I'm fine. Better than ever. Don't worry about me. Then I opened Michael's messages. Mrs. Harper, please, can we talk? Sarah is devastated. This is very cruel of you. I didn't think you were capable of something like this. At least give us more time. My mom is right. You are a very hard woman. Sarah won't stop crying. How are you going to sleep tonight knowing what you did? I read every message without feeling anything. Not guilt, not regret, just clarity. Finally, I opened Sarah's messages. Mom, answer me, please. Mom, I need to talk to you. I can't believe you did this to me. How could you ruin our Christmas? Michael is furious. Constance says you're a horrible person. You know what? She's right. You're selfish. You only think about yourself. You never cared about my happiness. It was always about the money. I wish Dad were alive to see what you turned into. That last message hit me like a punch to the stomach. She mentioned my husband, the man who loved me, the man who respected me, the man who valued me, and she used him as a weapon. I closed my eyes, took 3 deep breaths, and wrote my response. Sarah, I'm going to answer you one time. Then I'm going to turn off my phone. I didn't ruin your Christmas. Your Christmas was already ruined when you decided I wasn't welcome in it. I'm not selfish. I'm a woman who finally understood that self-love isn't selfishness. Yes, I thought about myself for the first time in a long time, and I'm not going to apologize for that. And about your dad would be proud of me, because he taught me that respect is the basis of love, and you forgot that. I love you, Sarah. I will always love you, but I'm no longer going to allow you to treat me as if I were invisible. When you're ready to talk for real without screaming, without accusations, without your mother-in-law in the middle, I'll be there. But not before. Merry Christmas. I sent the message, turned off my phone, and put it in the glove compartment. I stayed at that lookout until 11 p.m., watching the city lights, thinking about everything, about the years I had invested being a mother, about the sacrifices I had made, about the times I had swallowed the pain, About the times I had said it's okay when nothing was okay, and I realized something that filled me with a strange peace. I had done the right thing, not to hurt her, but to save myself. Because if I had continued like that 1 more year, 2 more years, 5 more years, I would have ended up a shadow, a ghost, someone who exists only to serve. And that wasn't a life. I returned to my apartment near midnight. The streets were still empty. I walked up the stairs slowly, opened my door, and entered my space. My small 2-bedroom apartment. No luxuries. No magazine decorations, but mine, completely mine. I took off my shoes, took off the dress, put on my most comfortable pajamas, and made myself chamomile tea. I sat in my armchair, and for the first time all night, I cried. I cried for the daughter I had lost. I cried for the relationship that had broken. I cried for the dreams that would never come true. I cried for the Christmas I had always imagined and would never have again. But I also cried from relief, because I didn't have to pretend anymore. I didn't have to smile when it hurt. I didn't have to make myself small to fit in places where they didn't want me. I cried until I had no tears left, and when I finished, I felt empty but also light, as if I had taken off a 20-year weight. I lay in my bed, looked at the ceiling, and whispered in the dark, "Merry Christmas, Evelyn. You did it. You survived." And I fell asleep. For the first time in months, I fell asleep in peace. The following days were strange. I didn't turn on my phone. I didn't answer calls. I didn't open messages. I simply existed. I read books I had pending for years. I watched movies I had always wanted to see. I walked through the park, drank coffee in a quiet cafe. I breathed without rush, without guilt, without fear. On December 27th, Margaret came to visit me. She knocked on the door softly. I opened it. She looked at me with those eyes full of worry that only a sister can have. "Can I come in?" "Sure." We entered. I served her coffee. We sat in the living room. "How are you?" she asked. "Fine. Evelyn, you don't have to pretend with me." "I'm not pretending, Maggie. I'm really fine." She looked at me intently. "Sarah has called me every day. She's devastated. I know. She says you made a terrible mistake." "It wasn't a mistake. She says you ruined her life." "I didn't ruin her life. I just recovered mine." Margaret Seahill. "Evelyn, isn't there really a way to fix this?" "Fix it how, Maggie? Giving them back the house? Apologizing for defending myself? Becoming invisible again?" "Not that." "Then what is it?" She fell silent. "Maggie, let me ask you something. If you had been in my place, what would you have done?" "I don't know." "Yes, you do. Tell me the truth." She lowered her gaze. "Probably the same thing as you. You see? But she's your daughter, Evelyn. I know. And precisely because she's my daughter, this hurts me so much. But also precisely because she's my daughter, I couldn't keep allowing her to treat me like that. What if she never forgives you?" That question pierced me. I stayed quiet a moment. "Then I will live with that. But at least I will live with dignity." Margaret took my hand. "You're stronger than I thought." "I'm not strong, Maggie. I'm just tired of being weak." She stayed with me all afternoon. We talked about other things. About childhood. About our parents. About summers at our grandparents' ranch. When life was simple. When love didn't hurt. When being family meant something. Before leaving, Margaret hugged me tight. "Whatever happens, I'm with you." "Thanks, sister." "And Evelyn, for what it's worth, I think you did the right thing." Those words sustained me for days. On December 30th, I received an email from Mr. Robinson. "Evelyn, informing you that the new owners will take formal possession of the property on January 24th. The current occupants have been notified. So far, they have not sought legal advice to appeal. I will keep you informed of any developments." So they weren't going to fight legally, probably because they knew they had no case. The house was mine. I sold it. End of story. December 31st, New Year's Eve. I spent alone. I didn't go to parties. I didn't answer invitations. I simply prepared a simple dinner, put on some jazz music, and at 12 midnight I poured myself a glass of wine. I toasted with myself. "To you, Evelyn, for everything you survived, for everything you let go, for everything you will build." And I drank slowly, savoring every sip. Not as an escape, but as a celebration. On January 2nd, I turned on my phone for the first time in 9 days. I had 43 messages, most from Sarah. I read them all, and in them, I saw the progression of her emotions. DC 27, Mom, please, let's talk. Deck 28, Mom, Michael says we have to look for an apartment. We can't find anything in our budget. Deck 29, Constance says we can stay with them temporarily, but her house is small. Deck 30, Mom, this is a nightmare. Deck 31, I packed your things from the room. They're in boxes. Do you want me to bring them, or are you coming for them? Jan 1, Happy New Year, I guess. Jan 2 morning. Mom, are you really going to let this end like this? That last message made me think, was I ending this, or had she ended it months ago without realizing it? I replied to a single message, Sarah, you can bring my things whenever you want. But if you come alone. No Michael, no mother-in-law, no one else, just you and me. If you're willing to do that, we can talk. I sent the message and waited. The answer arrived 3 hours later. Okay, I'm coming Saturday at 10 a.m. Saturday, January 4th, dawned cloudy. I made coffee, cleaned my apartment, put fresh flowers on the table. I didn't know if Sarah was coming to fight or to talk, but I was ready for either. At 10 sharp, they knocked on the door. I took a deep breath. I opened it. There was my daughter. No makeup, dark circles under her eyes, jeans, and a sweatshirt, 2 boxes in her arms. We looked at each other. And at that moment, I saw something in her eyes I hadn't seen in months. Vulnerability. Hi, Mom. Hi, sweetheart. Come in. She entered slowly, left the boxes by the door. We sat in the living room in silence. Uncomfortable. Painful. I poured 2 cups of coffee. I passed one to her. Thanks, she said almost in a whisper. We drank coffee in silence for several minutes. Finally, she spoke. Mom, I need to understand. What do you need to understand? Why did you do it? Why like that? I looked her in the eyes. Because you all made it very clear to me that I didn't matter. That's not true. Sarah, please. You didn't come here to lie to yourself. You came to talk. So, let's talk for real. She lowered her gaze. I didn't realize I was hurting you. You didn't realize? Or you didn't want to realize? She bit her lip. Maybe I didn't want to. Why? Because it was easier to please Constance than to defend you. Those words hung in the air. Finally, the truth. And now? I asked. Now what do you think? She looked up, and I saw tears in her eyes. Now I think I made a terrible mistake. I felt something move in my chest, but I didn't say anything. I just waited. Mom, I lost my house. Michael is furious with me. Constance blames me for everything. She says if I had handled you better, none of this would have happened. Handled. That word churned my stomach. Sarah, I am not a problem to handle. I am your mother. I know. Now I know. Really. Yes? Then tell me. If I gave you back the house right now, what would change? She stayed quiet. Would you include me in your life? Would you respect me? Or would we just go back to the same thing? I don't know, Mom. Exactly. That's why I did what I did. Because I needed you to understand that my love isn't infinite, that my patience has limits, and that I deserve respect too. She started to cry. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. And there, I saw my daughter. Not the woman who had hurt me, but the little girl who once hugged me and told me I was her hero. I got up, sat next to her, and hugged her. She cried on my shoulder for long minutes. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I know, sweetheart. I know. When she finally calmed down, we separated. We looked at each other. Mom, is there a way to fix this? Sarah, the house isn't mine anymore. I can't do anything. I don't mean the house. I mean us. I took a deep breath. That depends on you. What do you need from me? I need you to respect me. I need you to value me. I need you to remember that I am also a person with feelings, and I need you to set limits with your mother-in-law. She stayed quiet. I'm not going to ask you to choose between her and me, but I am going to ask you not to allow her to disrespect me. Okay. Okay. Yes, Mom. You're right. About everything. And Michael? She sighed. Michael is angry, but I also think he also understands. Last night he told me something. What? He said, your mom did what she had to do, and we made her have to do it. Those words surprised me. He said that? Yes. He's not happy, but he understands. I nodded. Sarah, I don't want us to lose our relationship, but I also can't go on being your mother halfway. Either you include me in your life for real, or we distance ourselves. Yes, she took my hand. I don't want to lose you, Mom. I don't want to lose you either, sweetheart. Then, can we start over? I looked at her intently. We can try, but it's going to take time, and it's going to require real changes. I know. And if at any moment you make me feel invisible again, I'm going to walk away. And this time, forever. She nodded. I understand. We hugged again. And in that hug, I felt something resembling hope. It wasn't total forgiveness. It wasn't forgetting. But it was a beginning. And sometimes, beginnings are enough. January passed slowly, like those months where everything is paused, waiting for something to resolve. Sarah and I started to rebuild our relationship little by little, carefully, like someone walking on broken glass. We met for coffee on Wednesdays, just the two of us. No Michael, no Constance, no one else. And there, in those conversations, I started to get to know a Sarah I had forgotten existed. A vulnerable, honest, scared Sarah. In one of those coffees, mid-January, she told me what was happening. Mom, we found an apartment. It's small, 2 bedrooms in an area we don't love, but it's what we can afford. When are you moving? January 20th, 4 days before we have to hand over the house. And how is Michael? She sighed. He's different. Different how? More quiet. Like disillusioned. Not with me, but with everything. With his mother. She looked at me surprised. How did you know? Mother's intuition. Sarah stirred her coffee with the spoon, thoughtful. When Constance found out we had to move to a small apartment, she was furious. Not with us. With you. She said you were a cruel woman. How was it possible you left your own daughter on the street? I didn't leave you on the street. I know, Mom. I told her that too, but she didn't want to listen. Then Michael told her something he had never told her. What did he tell her? He said, Mom, Mrs. Harper did what we forced her to do. If anyone is to blame, it's us, especially me, for allowing us to treat her like that. I felt a lump in my throat. And how did she react? She got extremely mad. She told him he was defending the woman who had taken everything from us, that he was being a bad son, that she had done everything for him, and this is how he repaid her. And Michael told her that was exactly the problem, that she had always made him feel like he owed her everything, and that he was tired of living with that guilt. I stayed quiet, processing. Mom, it was the first time I saw Michael setting a limit with his mother, and she didn't take it well. What happened? She left the house crying. She said she wouldn't come back until Michael apologized. And did he apologize? No. And I think that's what hurts her the most. That for the first time in his life, Michael didn't give in. I took a sip of my coffee. And how do you feel about all this? Relieved, Mom. I feel relieved because finally I feel like Michael and I are a team. Not Michael, his mom, and me. Just the two of us. I'm glad to hear that, sweetheart. But it also makes me sad because I see Michael suffering. He loves his mom, but he's also understanding that his mom has manipulated him all his life. That is very painful to see. Yes, but I also think it's necessary. I nodded. Because it was. Sometimes pain is the only way to wake up. On January 20th, I helped Sarah and Michael move. I arrived at the new apartment with plastic bins, tape, and markers. Mom, you didn't have to come, Sarah said when she saw me arrive. Of course I did. That's what mothers are for. Michael came out of the apartment carrying a lamp. When he saw me, he stopped. Mrs. Harper. Michael. We looked at each other in silence. He put the lamp on the floor and approached me. Mrs. Harper, I need to tell you something. Tell me. I'm very sorry for how we treated you. Sarah and I have talked a lot, and I understand why you did what you did. And although it hurt, and although it was very difficult, you were right. His words took me by surprise. Thanks for saying that, Michael. My mom taught me to respect my elders, but I forgot to apply that to you. And that has no excuse. We all make mistakes, but not all of us pay so dearly for them. Sometimes high prices are the best lessons. He nodded. I hope someday you can forgive us. I already forgave you, Michael, but forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. It means learning. I understand. We shook hands, and in that simple gesture, I felt something close. Not with a happy ending, but with dignity. We spent the day unpacking. The apartment was effectively small, nothing compared to the house. The living and dining room were one space. The bedrooms barely fit a bed and a closet. The kitchen was narrow, but it was clean, and it was theirs. Without debts they couldn't pay, without feeling obligated to anyone. What are you going to do with the furniture that doesn't fit? I asked. We're going to sell it, Sarah said. The big dining set, some bookcases, the whole living room set. We already listed everything online. And the table? Sarah looked at me. The table you gifted us. Yes, that we're going to sell too, Mom. It doesn't fit here. I felt a pinch in my chest. That table where I had imagined family meals, laughter, Christmases. It's okay, I said. It was yours. You can do what you want with it. But Sarah noticed my expression. Mom, if you want it. No, sweetheart. I don't have space for it either. And it was true. That table belonged to a dream that no longer existed. In the afternoon, while we were resting, Constance arrived. No one had called her. No one had told her we were going to be there. She simply appeared. High heels, designer bag, dark glasses, as if she were arriving at a social event. Michael, son, I came to see how you were. Michael came out of the apartment. When he saw her, his expression hardened. Mom, what are you doing here? I came to help you with the move. We don't need help. Michael, don't be ridiculous. Of course you need help. She looked at the building with disdain. This is very different from what you had. It's what we can afford, Mom. But you didn't have to come to this. If only you had. If only I had what, Mom? If only I had forced Mrs. Harper to gift us a house? Don't talk nonsense. It's not nonsense. You never wanted to accept that house wasn't ours. And you put ideas in our heads. You made us believe we had a right to something that didn't belong to us. Constance took off her glasses. Are you blaming me for this? I'm not blaming you. I'm just telling you the truth. Michael, I only wanted the best for you. No, Mom. You wanted the best for your image. You wanted to brag that your son lived in a big house. You wanted to control everything. You wanted Sarah and me to live by your standards. That's not true. Yes, it is. And that's why we ended up losing everything. Constance looked around seeking support. Her gaze crossed mine. I was standing by the apartment door, observing the scene. You, she said, pointing her finger at me. You are behind all this? No, Constance. I am just here helping my daughter. You put ideas in their heads. I didn't put anything in their heads. They made their own decisions. You are manipulating them. Michael stepped in. Enough, Mom, enough! Michael's shout resonated in the street. Several neighbors came to their windows. Constance went pale. Michael, don't raise your voice at me. Then don't provoke me. Mrs. Harper is my wife's mother, and from now on you are going to treat her with respect. If you can't do that, then you are not welcome in our life. The silence that followed was brutal. Constance looked at her son as if she didn't recognize him. You're kicking me out? I am asking you to respect my family. I am your family, and so is Sarah, and so is Mrs. Harper. And if you can't accept that, then yes, I am asking you to leave. Constance took a step back. Her eyes filled with tears, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of rage. Someday you will regret this. Maybe, but not today. She turned around, walked to her car with quick steps, got in, and left without saying goodbye. Without looking back, Michael remained standing in the street, breathing heavily. Sarah went out and hugged him. I'm proud of you, she whispered. He hugged her tight and cried. He cried like I had never seen him cry before. Because he had just set a limit he had been avoiding for 30 years, and that hurts, even if it's the right thing. That night, after finishing the move, we ate pizza on the floor of the new apartment. There was no table, there were no chairs yet, but we were together. Mom, Thanks for coming, Sarah said, leaning on my shoulder. I'll always be here for you, my love. But now, with healthy boundaries. She smiled. With healthy boundaries. Michael raised his soda. To new beginnings. We clinked our soda cans. To new beginnings. And at that moment, in that small apartment, sitting on the floor, I felt more like family than I had felt in months in that big house. Because family isn't measured in square feet. It's measured in respect, in presence, in true love. The following weeks, I learned through Sarah that Constance hadn't called Michael again, that she had pulled away completely, offended, wounded in her pride, waiting for him to apologize. But Michael didn't apologize, and little by little, Constance started to feel the weight of her own decision. In February, Margaret called me. Evelyn, I have to tell you something. What happened? I ran into Constance at the grocery store, and she's different. Different how? She's alone, Evelyn. Very alone. Her husband works all day. Michael doesn't talk to her. And she looks sad. Aged. As if all that pride were collapsing on top of her. I didn't feel joy hearing that. Nor did I feel pity. I just felt understanding. She chose pride over love, Maggie. I know. And now she's paying the price. We all pay the price for our decisions. Don't you feel, I don't know, some satisfaction? No. I just feel peace. Because it was true. I hadn't done this for revenge. I had done it to save myself. And the fact that Constance was facing the consequences of her own behavior, that wasn't my responsibility. That was karma. That silent justice that arrives when you least expect it. In March, Sarah told me that Constance had tried to reach out again. She sent a text to Michael. She said she missed him, that she wanted to make peace. And what did Michael answer? He told her he missed her too, but that things had to change. That if she wanted to be in our lives, she had to respect our whole family, including you. And what did she say? She got mad again. She said Michael was asking her to humiliate herself. And she hung up. I shook my head. She doesn't understand that respecting isn't humiliating yourself. No, Mom, she doesn't understand. Maybe someday she will. You think? Maybe when she's lonelier. When she understands that pride is a very bad companion in old age. And so it was. Months later, in June, Margaret told me that Constance had started going to therapy, that she had suffered an anxiety attack that took her to the hospital, that the doctor had told her her blood pressure was very high, that she needed to manage her stress, and that finally, in one of those therapy sessions, she had started to see her own pattern, her need for control, her fear of losing relevance, her way of manipulating through guilt. Has she reached out to Michael? I asked. Yes, 2 weeks ago. She invited him to lunch and asked for forgiveness. Really? Yes, Evelyn. She told him she had been a bad mother, that she had suffocated him with her expectations, that she regretted trying to control his marriage, and Michael cried, Evelyn. He cried because he finally heard the words he had needed to hear for years. I stayed silent, processing. And you? Asked Margaret. How do you feel knowing that? I feel calm. Don't you feel you should receive an apology too? Maybe I'll receive it someday. Maybe not. But I don't need it to be at peace. Because it was true. Life had taken charge of putting things in their place. Constance had lost the relationship with her son, had lost the control she needed so much, had faced her loneliness, and finally had understood. Not through my intervention, but through the natural consequences of her own actions. That is karma. It's not revenge. It's balance. It's life teaching you with infinite patience that what you sow is what you reap, and I didn't need to see her suffer to feel good. I just needed to know that justice had finally arrived. Silent. Inevitable. Perfect. 2 years have passed since that Christmas Eve. 2 years since I made the hardest decision of my life. And today, sitting in my small apartment with a cup of coffee in my hands and the morning sun entering my window, I can say it was the best decision I've taken. Not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. My relationship with Sarah is different now. It's no longer that mother-daughter relationship where I gave everything and she took without thinking. Now it's a relationship of 2 adult women who respect each other, who care for each other, who choose each other. We see each other every week. Sometimes for lunch, sometimes just to walk in the park. We talk about everything: her work, her marriage, my projects. Because yes, now I have projects. After selling the house, I had enough money left not to worry for a while, and I decided to do something I had always wanted to do but never dared. I took painting classes. Something that had fascinated me since I was a child, but I had abandoned because it wasn't practical, because I had to work, because I had to be responsible, because I had to sacrifice myself for others. But now I paint. I'm not Frida Kahlo, nor do I pretend to be. But every time I put the brush on the canvas, I feel alive, I feel complete, I feel like me. I also joined a group of women my age. We meet on Thursdays at a cafe downtown. We talk about our lives, our children, our pains, our victories. And there I discovered that my story wasn't unique, that there were many women who had gone through the same thing. Mothers who had blurred themselves trying to please. Mothers who had lost their identity along the way. Mothers who had to make painful decisions to save themselves. And in those conversations, I found sisterhood. I found understanding. I found a space where my pain wasn't drama, where my decision wasn't cruelty, where my story was valid. One afternoon, one of those women told me, "Evelyn, you are very brave." I shook my head. "I'm not brave. I was just tired." "That's the same thing," she replied. "Bravery isn't not having fear. It's being exhausted and still taking the step." Those words stuck with me because she was right. I wasn't brave because I wasn't afraid. I was brave because, despite the terror of losing my daughter, I chose not to lose myself. Michael and Sarah adapted to their new life. The small apartment became their home. Little by little, they decorated it with care, with simple furniture, with plants, with photographs. And although at first it was difficult, now Sarah tells me it's the place where she's been happiest. "Because it's ours, Mom," she told me one day. "We don't owe anyone. We don't have to impress anyone. It's just Michael and me." And that was something they wouldn't have learned if I had kept gifting them everything. Sometimes the greatest love is letting them fall so they learn to get up alone. Michael and his mother finally found a balance. It wasn't fast. It wasn't easy. But after months of therapy, Constance started to change. Not completely. People don't change overnight, but she learned to let go. She learned to respect. She learned that love isn't demonstrated with control, but with freedom. 6 months ago, Michael invited me to lunch, just him and me. We went to a quiet restaurant, and there, while we shared some appetizers, he told me something I will never forget. "Mrs. Harper, I know what happened was very painful for everyone, but I need you to know something." "What is it, Michael?" "You saved me." I looked at him confused. "How?" "You saved me from becoming my mother. When you sold that house, I was furious. I felt everything had been taken from me, but over time I understood something. I understood that I was living the life my mom wanted for me, not the life I wanted. And if you hadn't done what you did, I would have continued like that, trapped, without realizing it." His voice broke. "Now I have a simple life, but it's my life, and that has no price." I took his hand. "Michael, I'm very glad to hear you say that. Thank you, Mrs. Harper. For everything, even for the pain." That day I cried in my car on the way home, but not from sadness, from gratitude. Because finally we had all learned. Constance and I never became friends. We probably never will be, but we reached a tacit agreement, a cold but real respect. We see each other at birthdays, at family gatherings. We greet each other politely. She no longer sees me as a threat. I no longer see her as an enemy. We simply coexist, and that is enough. 3 months ago, Sarah gave me news. She arrived at my apartment on a Sunday morning with a bag of pastries and a nervous smile. "Mom, I have to tell you something." "What is it, sweetheart?" She sat next to me, took my hands. "I'm pregnant." The world stopped. "What?" "I'm going to be a mom. And you're going to be a grandma." Tears arrived before I could stop them. I hugged her tight, very tight. "How far along are you?" 2 months. "I wanted to be sure before telling you." "And how do you feel?" "Scared, excited, happy. And I want you to be with me in all this, Mom." "Of course I'm going to be with you." "No, Mom. I mean really. I want you to be an important part of my baby's life. I want you to be the grandma that I had, the one who took care of me, the one who taught me, the one who was always there. My love, you don't have to ask me. Yes, I do have to ask you. Because I know I hurt you, and I know we lost time, and I don't want that to repeat itself. I want my child to grow up knowing they have an incredible grandma. I hugged her again. And in that hug, I felt that everything had been worth it. The pain, the loss, the loneliness, everything. Because finally, we were going to have a second chance. But this time, with respect, with healthy boundaries, with true love. Yesterday was Christmas. 2 years after that Christmas Eve that changed everything. This time it was different. Sarah and Michael invited me to their apartment. Arthur and Constance were also there, and Margaret, my sister. The table was small. The dinner was simple. Sarah cooked turkey. I brought my famous stuffing, the same one that was once rejected. This time there was none left over. This time everyone ate. And when Michael raised his glass to make a toast, he said, "I want to thank everyone here, especially the women at this table. My mom, who is learning to love me without suffocating me. Sarah, my wife, my partner, my everything, and Mrs. Harper." He looked directly at me. Mrs. Harper, who taught us the hardest and most necessary lesson of our lives, who taught us that love without respect isn't love, and that sometimes the most painful decisions are the wisest. Thank you, Mrs. Harper, for not letting us forget you, for demanding your place, for saving us from ourselves. Everyone raised their glasses, even Constance. We clinked, we drank. And there, at that small table, in that humble apartment, I felt more at home than ever. Because finally, I had what I had always wanted. Not a big house. Not luxuries. Not appearances. Just love. True love. Love with respect. Love that didn't make me invisible. After dinner, Sarah and I stayed alone in the kitchen washing dishes. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Sure, sweetheart." "Do you regret it? Do you regret selling the house?" I stayed quiet a moment, drying a plate carefully. "No, Sarah, I don't regret it, but you lost so much money." "I didn't lose money, my love. I invested in something better." "In what?" "In my dignity, in my peace, and finally, in us." She wiped away a tear. "I do regret it, Mom." "Regret what?" "Making you go through all that, not knowing how to value you, having to lose you to learn to love you well." I hugged her. "We didn't lose each other, sweetheart. We just found each other again in a different way. Do you forgive me? I forgave you a long time ago. Now forgive yourself." We stayed hugged in that kitchen. Mother and daughter, but also woman and woman. With scars, with lessons, with renewed love. Today, as I write this story in my notebook, watching the sunset from my window, I realize something. Life isn't fair, but it is wise. It takes from you, it breaks you, it forces you to let go. But in the end, it teaches you. And if you pay attention, it transforms you. I reached 58, thinking my life was already defined, that my role was to be a mother, just a mother, and that meant giving until disappearing. But I was wrong. Being a mother doesn't mean erasing yourself. It means teaching. And sometimes the best teaching is the example. The example of a woman who respects herself, a woman who sets limits, a woman who chooses her peace over the comfort of others. And that woman I found along the way is me. Evelyn Harper. 60 years old now. Amateur painter. Grandma-to-be. Daughter. Sister. Friend. But above all, a woman. A complete woman. A woman who learned that the most important love is self-love, because when you love yourself, you teach others how to love you. And when you respect yourself, you teach others how to respect you. It wasn't easy. It wasn't fast. But it was worth it. Every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of loneliness, every painful decision. It was worth it. Because today I can look in the mirror and recognize myself. Today I can walk with my head held high. Today I can say no without guilt. And today I can say yes without fear. If my story touched your heart, if you recognize something of yourself in me, I want you to know something. You aren't selfish for choosing yourself. You aren't a bad mother for setting limits. You aren't cruel for defending your dignity. You are human. And you deserve respect from your children, from your family, from your partner, but above all from yourself. Because love that doesn't include you isn't love, it's sacrifice. And sacrifice without reciprocity is abuse disguised as virtue. Don't make yourself small to fit in places that don't value you. Don't apologize for taking up space. Don't beg for love from those who should give it freely. Because you are valuable, you are important, you are enough just as you are. And if someone doesn't see it, that is their problem, not yours. Sometimes you have to lose to find. You have to let go to receive. You have to break to rebuild. And even if it hurts, even if the road is dark, even if you feel you won't survive, you will survive. I know. Because I survived. And if I could, you can too. Thank you for listening to the end. Thank you for staying with me in this story. Thank you for allowing me to share my pain and also my healing. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs it. With that mother who is struggling. With that woman who feels invisible. With that person who needs to know they are not alone. Because sometimes a story is enough to change a life. And if it changed yours, then everything I lived, everything I lost, everything I gained will have been worth it. Subscribe and hit the bell to hear more stories of women who transformed their pain into wisdom. Every day, a woman, a life lesson. Share this story with someone you love. Sometimes a story like this can change a whole day. God bless you. And always remember, your value doesn't depend on how much you sacrifice. Your value exists simply because you exist. Until next time,